we are making something beautiful today. Several months ago, we worked on these coiled hoop earrings, and I fell in love with coils and how you can use them in so many different ways. I went on to make these other very classy simple earrings using a smaller coil design that's been tripled up. Loved that, and I just wanted to continue on per your request for some more chain link. And what a great way to use this coil again. Another way where I could figure out how can I use this. And look at these mini coils, linked coils in this chain link. So sweet, so adorable. This one happens to be made with 20 gauge using the 3mm bail. But I also upgraded to using 18 gauge using the 5mm bail. Now, I did not try this with 16 gauge. It might be just too bulky, but that's something I will leave on the table to try at another date. And then I also, on this one, I put a couple of little seed beads on there. So, I mean, you could go even bigger. I just stuck those on just to see what would it do, how would it react, and I liked that look too. So we're gonna go through this basic foundation of this chain link that you can leave it in this state of 20 gauge with the 3mm bail. You can upgrade it to 18 gauge using the 5mm. You can also adorn it. So these are some options, but this is going to get you there with a great foundation. Let's go over what we're going to be using. Very basic setup for today. 2 chain nose pliers, flush cutters, of course, bail pliers. You're going to be using the Nylon Hammer with the bench block, and you'll keep maybe a polishing cloth and definitely a file on hand to keep things nice and tidy and clean. The wires I'm using today, 20 gauge for our structure of our bracelet. And when we get to the clasp at the end of this video, we're going to use 16 gauge for a nice strong connection. So I've gone ahead and cut several lengths of 3.5 inches of 20 gauge. I'm going to stick with that smaller, lighter chain. Really, really lovely. And I've shown you in the past that you kind of want to do these bracelets, your necklaces in an assembly line. It makes it go faster. It makes it go easy. I'll put on a movie or a show or an audiobook as I'm busting through this, and let me know, what do you like to do when you're working jewelry? Do you like it quiet, or do you have something, your favorite show on in the background? So I've got these lengths of 3.5 inches, and you will need 2 of lengths per one of these little knots. And so I've got about 8 of these. So I'm going to be, oh, hold on, let me just count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 9. 9 of these. So I've got 18 pieces of cut wire in this, and this measures about 7 inches. So that gives you an idea of 7 inches is kind of an average bracelet length. If you want to just say, hey, we're working on a bracelet, you'll need about 18 pieces of this 3.5 inches of wire, just to give you a ballpark figure what we're working with. So to get started, we're going to work through one element of this bracelet first. We're just going to go through, we're going to put the coils on the end of each of these wires. And I'm using my stepped bail pliers. I'm going for the 3mm bail. And when you cut through these pieces of wire, you don't really have to worry about flush cutting both ends. If you can see, this side is not flush cut. And if you start the coiling on the flush cut side, this is going to get trimmed anyway. So this will make cutting all your pieces really fast. You don't have to worry about flush cutting, just to get your pieces cut. And I'm putting the pliers right on the end. That makes for roundedness to the very end of your wire. And we're going to start turning in. One thing I want you to make note of is, and I've shown you this when we learned how to make some jump rings, make the end of this wire go to the outside of the pliers, going out this way. we want it to move out. That will make the coil extend to the out of the pliers, and you won't be limited by how long your bail is. Once it gets around to basically 3 layers, that's when you're going to want to pay attention. Turn your pliers like this and watch that end. And we're going to keep wrapping until it gets to about 6 o'clock. Maybe just a little bit more. 6 o'clock on the pliers. Do you see the end of the wire right down there in the bottom? That's what we want to go for. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do all of these. Okay, I've got all of my pieces with my coiled ends, and to do this, because we started that assembly line, I got it done in about 4.5 minutes. Much faster when you work like that. So for each of these, like I mentioned, it's going to require 2 of these pieces. Now, I have not determined whether or not this is necessary or not, but for some reason, it's got this squared flush end. I take my flush cutters and I just snip off that end so that it is more of like a 45-degree on the end. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's like the slightest 45-degree. And in my mind, whatever, it makes me feel like they slide into each other when you just make this slightest 45-degree angle. It might not be necessary, but once I started doing it, then I have to do it. I know no other way. And this is where a little filing will come in, and just to smooth that out. This just happens to be like a little manicure filer, but your standard filer will work as well. You're going to take one of these, and where it comes to the end that we were just filing, we're just going to split that open just a little bit. Maybe not that much. Something like that. Take one of your coils in your hand like this, where the feeder wire's on top of the coil. So I've got it like this, but I'm going to be having it upright like this. For this one, we are going to hold it kind of at an angle here, a 90-degree angle, and this little end that we pulled out just a little bit is going to slide inside that coil and then come back on the other end. It's a little fiddly because they are small. This is a dainty version of these coils, but keep messing with it until that end comes out. And then you just turn it just like a screw. And as you're doing it, press this coil back together, because as you're weaving them together in a way, they come, see how they separate a little bit? Just press them together, and then you can continue coiling. We're almost done. Keep going. If you need pliers to help you press it together a little bit, you can do that as well. It's a little fiddly, not to worry, it will go in. And keep twisting in there until none of this feeder wire is laying across the other side of the coil. Now you notice this one is hanging out. You see the end of this other one? You're just going to twist it until that end is hiding in there. I'm looking at both. Now this side is hanging out a little bit. This is the only part where you have to be like twisting and maneuvering. But that is perfectly fine, and that's to be expected, just so you know. Now once we've got it in this position, It doesn't matter which one you go to, but we want to start going to one of these coils. And see, right now, this feeder line, the feeder wire is coming out at a 45-degree angle. We want it to come straight out from this coil. So come in there and just give a bend out. So now that's coming out from that coil. I'm going to turn this whole piece and do the same thing for the other side. This doesn't have to be like absolutely perfect. There is a certain measure of organicness to this link, which really makes it nice and forgiving. So once you've got your pieces turned out, coming out from the coil, it's going to look something like this. Okay? And now when I did this before, I was not using a bench block, so I'm kind of curious to see what this is going to do. I just did it right on the table, but I'm curious. I'm always testing things out with you. We're going to hope it works. Okay. At this position, you see this broad side of this coil, and you can see down into the other one. We want to turn it so that we see kind of this, almost like hands holding each other. Okay, get it to this, roll it over so it's like, now stay there. It's going to want to go back to that other position, but this is where you get to tell it what to do. Hold it there, and very gently with your nylon side of the hammer, I'm going to press this coil down. Kind of like, let me show you on these earrings. See how these were very circular, and once they're hammered down, they become this little oval shapes that sit a little flatter together. And so that's what we're going for by doing this. It kind of locks the coils in a little bit as well, so they're not as wiggly. So once you get it hammered down a little bit, it'll look like this. Now all we have to do is put our little connecting loops in on either end. If you're new to wire wrapping and putting these loops, I'll try to go nice and slow so you see what I'm doing. I love bail pliers. They make for consistent loops that you always know are going to be the same size. There's nothing wrong with round nose pliers, but especially if you're a beginner, these are super, super helpful, and I highly recommend them. They come with all these preset measurements in there, which also helps when you're working with different beads. If you want to know how big the opening needs to be, or for whatever size bead that you're using, well, these come with these ready-made measurements, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9 on my pliers, and it really helps when you're working with beads and you can get accurate measurements. So that's my little piece. I am taking my pliers and I'm pressing nice and snug down against that coil. I'm going to bend this wire back to myself and make that little neck. Take your bail pliers again and snug it up in there without losing the whole shebang. Kind of in a line. Don't put your pliers around the corner like this. We want them straight up and down like that. That gives a nice neck to the wrap. Now I'm not nice and straight. I want to straighten this out before I press over the top of that bail to make the little connecting loop. Turn your pliers, swing this around, still keeping everything in a straight line. Let me make sure my grip is secure here. Take that little tail with your fingers or with some pliers, and you just bring it around and make this like little scarf action here. And you'll have something like that. You are on your way to your very first little connecting loop. I'll take my chain nose pliers, and the closer you get to down in this jaw, the tighter your grip will be. So I always try to get it down there as close as I can and still be able to function. Not everyone does this. I kind of do this because it's comfortable for me. I turned this, so now that I'm holding it in my left hand. I started doing this when I made the honey dipper chain link. I'll put a link in that so you know what that is. And I just found it to be comfortable. And I'm going for 3 wraps. Oh my goodness. My cats are going after my lizard. I've put in 1, and I'm still holding this very firmly and going very slowly as well. And I'm going for 3 wraps over and under. I'm going to get 1 more in there. Oh my gosh, come on. And then I'll trim this end. And tuck in what is left sticking out there. And if anything is a little, you know, could be buttoned up a little tighter, you can take some pliers and just straighten out that little coil of wraps. Straighten this out if it's a little wonky. Now, someone got on to me about using the word wonky. I'm going to use the word wonky. I like the word wonky, so I'm sorry if that word bothers you. I've always used the word wonky and will continue to use wonky. Okay, so now we're going to go put it in this other connecting loop on the other side. And as a beginner, you see how this loop is in this direction. To get the corresponding loop to go in the same direction, we're going to go back with our pliers, and you will just follow in that same direction. Don't have it like this, because if you do the same process, then this, it's not the end of the world. That's if the look you're going for, but not in this one. You'll have the one sitting on this plane kind of horizontal, and then this one will be going along this way, and they won't be going in the same level, same plane. So make sure it's like this, and it's nice and straight in line. I want to bend this up just a little bit, the tiniest little bit, to get it more in line. The more little fine tweaks and perfection than you make it, the better outcome that you will get. And I'm going to press this back over to myself, turn my pliers, I got fuzz in there, so that it's in this neck like this. I don't think I told you. I am so sorry. I didn't tell you that I was making the loops with the 2mm bail, so that means I got to shove this 3mm one in there. It's not ideal, but I'll make it work. And remember, keep it all, everything nice and straight. And then press right on over the top of that bail. I'm turning my hand, I'm turning my pliers, and now I've opened up the space where we can pull the end of our wire. You can also, if it's a little off to the side, see how it's kind of hanging out over on this side? Just keep turning and making that loop. And that will straighten that out for you and get it nice and even. There is going to be a little movement in this link, which I actually kind of really like. So don't worry about it if it moves a little bit on you. It's to be expected with this kind of link, but we do want to make sure everything is as straight as possible. Back to the same movement. I had it like this. I've changed hands to my non-dominant so that I can take some chain nose, make sure I get a good grip, and put in these matching wraps. Making adjustments so I can get in there a little better. Going nice and slow. If you need to tuck in as you're going, kind of really get a nice wrap, do that. You don't need to wait to the end to get things nice and tidy. And where is my bottom? This is the bottom side, so I'm going to trim this excess off now that I've got the wraps in, and then pinch in that end. And there we have our very first, sweetest little coiled link. Okay, let's do this one more time so I can show you how they connect. And then we'll make a sweet little matching clasp for this bracelet or necklace or whatever you are working on. Maybe you're going to make earrings. I just want to trim just a little bit, a 45-degree angle, so they slide in together a little better. Doesn't mean it's not going to be fiddly. But it helps a little bit. And then file these ends. Open up one of these ends just a little bit, so it's sitting out there like that. Take this one in your left hand. This one will be sitting kind of at a 90-degree angle to it. And you're just going to take that end and slide it in that channel, the coil of the one in my left hand, until we get that end to come out. And then keep turning. You have to press it back together if you need to. Well, you will need to. Until it is all fed through, twisted through the other coil. And this feeder line, feeder wire, is not laying on top of that other coil. Okay, I've got the end hidden in this coil, but this one is sticking out just a little bit. So just turn this one so now that both ends are hidden within the coils. You can take some pliers just to push things together very gently. All it takes is a little too hard of a grasp or a pinch and you've squished your coil. This is not straight, so I'm just straightening this out. So now at this point, we've got a little something like this. Remember, our wire is hanging out at this 45-degree angle. We want to bring it straight out from the coil. Multiple different ways to do this. You can come in here and bend it. You could stick your pliers inside there like that and grab that and then push back. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. That might be a little more, feels a little more secure doing it like that. I'll do it on this side so you can see what I just did again. I just put my plier, now these are tweezer nose. That is probably an element that you're going to need to have. I'm just sliding that inside that coil and then just pressing back against my pliers. So pretty close, relatively. We've got them coming out from this sweet coil. Now at this point, this is where I brought out my bench block and a nylon hammer, and we want to press down Get it so that it's sitting. This is a little tricky. Sitting looking like it's holding hands. Very gently till it's a little squashed down a little bit. Who didn't have stud earrings in the 80s that look like this? Come on now, that's adorable. Bail pliers, we're going to be using the 2mm bail, and I'm so sorry I didn't tell that in the very, very beginning. I don't know. Put it on this little form that we're making and snug it down next to that coil. Press back to yourself. Take out your pliers, put in the 3mm bail in that neck. So now that the 2mm bail is sitting on the outside, this is what's going to make our connector loop. I'm looking at this, I've got it nice and straight, I think. And then begin pressing over the top of that bail. This is when I'm turning my hand, and then I swing out the pliers. Pull this with your hands or with tweezers, whatever is more, makes you feel like you're more in control. And make that little scarf shape. Switch out to your chain nose pliers. I'm going to press that down just a little bit. Grab it firmly down deep into this jaw. Not like that. What I like to do is change my hands. So now that I have it like this, I'm going to grab that in with some pliers, and I'm going to put in 3 wraps. As you're going along, if you need to adjust how the wraps are situated, please do. That will make you have a better result in the end. All right, now I'm just going to trim off this end. And just press that down nice and snug. No roughness. All right, now we're going to move to the other side, and this is where the connection comes in. I'm going to look to see how my other loop is positioned, and I want to match that same rotation, going like this and not open circle like this. So back to bail pliers, I'm going to put the 2mm snug down next to the coil, press back over towards myself, take out the pliers, put them back in with the 3mm down in that neck, and make sure your 2mm bail is, we're kind of making a line here. There is movement in this, so you're just gonna have to make sure you're eyeballing it as best you can. Make sure it's straight before you press back over that bail to make this connecting loop. Turn your hand, swing out the pliers, and make the scarf. And when you make the scarf, don't make the wraps yet. This is where you take your very first link and slide it on. Now, I want to switch. Now we can press this down, hold it firmly deep in the jaw of the pliers, and put in those matching wraps. And that's all there is to it. All the while I'm going slow and I'm taking my time. You'll get a much better result if you just go slow. I really can't say that enough. Trim any excess that you have. And snug in those ends. And we have a great beginning to a great bracelet, necklace, and I think even with just one or two of these, imagine if you just had one and you had, you know, a sweet little bead hanging off the end of this with the ear wire. That would be so dainty and classy. Let's make a sweet little clasp to go with this bracelet. Here's where that polishing cloth comes in. I like to take off some tarnish, and I'm going with 16 gauge for that. I always try to use a nice heavy gauge for clasps. They take a beating. And I'll probably go, let's go for about 3 inches. And if you're just learning wire work, this works a lot like these ends that I just did. I want to make this clasp match with the same little connecting loop and the wraps. This is a little easier with chain nose pliers, just to put this very first bend in. This side is going to become our little loop and wraps, and this side is going to become the hooks. And the 3 inches gives you a lot to work with. Probably don't need all that, but I always want to make sure I have enough to work with. And I'm just going to put a bend backwards in this. Now this works just like we were doing with these little loops. I'm going to put my pliers in here like that. The 3 millimeter is down in the neck, but we're going to be wrapping around the 2 millimeter. So now that I make sure I've got it nice and straight and it's level, I can press over that bail. And the bending in the middle makes this nice little neck. That's why we bent back first. You don't always have to do that, but for this kind of thing, it's probably the best. I'm going to keep turning my pliers so that I'm kind of making this line. I'm going to grab some pliers, since this is 16 gauge, and pull it over, making that little scarf shape. Now mine is a little wonky. I'm just going to press this down, get it in line, and you see how the loop is hanging out to what would that be, our right? If your loop does that, just keep turning it so that it gets a little more center to this wire here. Pull that back out just a little bit, and that will have straightened out that loop. Once you've got this little loop, we're going to lift up just a little bit. I made a tiny little gap in there. This is where we feed on this clasp. And one of these little loops, one of these connecting loops, is just going to slide right on there. Pinch that down. Grab that firmly. Same process. Making 3 wraps. Now you don't have to do 3. You could just do 2 if that works better for you. I do like 3 wraps, but that is an option. I mean, this is 16 gauge. It's going to be holding. And once I got this coming around to the bottom, I'll just trim that off a little bit. And make sure that's tucked in. Take your file, whatever you're using, and just soften that end. You don't want any rough edges. Now my loop is not coming out straight. I want to take just a moment just to make sure that everything looks nice and tidy. All right, now we're going to be making that sweet little hook. Takes your chain nose pliers. Now you see me, I use these all the time, but for this one little element, I'll get chain nose pliers that are a little bit wider, and I'm just going to grab that whole wad of wraps that we just made and bend back to yourself. See what we're doing? We're making that neck. And I think I'll go with what the 3 millimeter do? Let's see what the 3 millimeter bail does. So this 2mm will be down here, and I'll have the 3mm on top, and that's what's going to make our little hook. Bend right on over. Turn your hand, turn your pliers so you get it nice and straight out like this, and then just keep pressing the rest of the way. Now this is your preference of where you would like to trim this. I kind of go to where the little loop is. Didn't quite need all that 3 inches, but I think it was necessary to help you make the hook and the bends and things like that. And you just take some chain nose pliers and just bend that out a little bit to make the sweetest, look at that, isn't that adorable? And then really gonna wanna make that this is nice and smooth. And that, my dear, finishes this piece. You just wrap around your bracelet to the other side and that hooks right in there. Isn't that adorable? I've got to put this on right now. Oh my goodness. I think this is my new favorite bracelet. I have a lot of favorites, but man, I really, really like that. And I hope you do too. Great being here with you today. And remember, you can always bump it up to 18 gauge using a 5mm bail. And then this one, this is still using the 20 gauge. I put those little accent beads in there. Maybe just something a little bigger, whatever fits your 20 gauge. If you do that, I would add maybe go up to 4 inches of wire, so you just to make sure that you have enough room for any beads that you stick in there. I just think that's a great option. I think coils in general are fantastic. I mean, look at these triple coiled earrings. And then these are my go-to. I wear these almost every single day. I'll make sure to leave that link for that video as well so you can make these awesome earrings. I think I get a comment on them every time I wear them because they're just wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed that wonderful tutorial. A great link for all your pieces that you're working on. And I'm already thinking about what are we going to make beautiful next week for Tutorial Tuesday.